The whole fabric of honeybee society depends on communication, on an inanimate ability to send and receive messages, to encode and decode information. The honeybee. Chapter 9. July 28th was a day for the record books. I look back on it, and what comes to me are people going over Niagara Falls in barrels. Ever since I'd heard about that, I tried to imagine people crouched inside, bobbing along peacefully like rubber ducks in a child's bathtub, and suddenly the water turning choppy and the barrel starting to thrash around while a roar grows in the distance. I knew they were in there saying, "Shit bucket, what was I thinking?" At 8 o'clock in the morning it hit 94 degrees, with the ambitious plan of reaching 103 before noon. I woke up with August shaking my shoulder, saying, "It was going to be a scorcher. Get up, we had to water the bees." I climbed into the honey wagon with my hair uncombed, with May handing me butter toast and orange juice through the window, and Rosaline sticking the thermoses of water, both of them practically running alongside the truck while August rolled out of the driveway. I felt like the Red Cross springing to action to save the bee queendom. In the back of the truck, August had gallons of sugar water already made up. "When it gets over 100, she said, "the flowers dry up and there's no food for the bees. They stay in the hives fanning themselves. Sometimes they just roast." I felt like we might roast alive ourselves. You could not touch the door handle for fear of a third-degree burn. Sweat ran between my breasts and sopped under my underwear band. August turned on the radio for the weather, but what we heard was how Ranger 7 had finally been launched to the moon in a place called the Sea of Clouds, how police were looking for the bodies of those 3 civil rights workers in Mississippi, and the terrible things happening in Vietnam. It ended with a story about what was happening closer to home, how Black people from Tiburon, Florence, and Orangeburg were marching today all the way to Columbia asking the governor to enforce the Civil Rights Act. August turned it off. Enough was enough. You cannot fix the whole world. "I've already watered the hives around the house," she said. "Zach is taking care of the hives on the east side of the county, so you and I have got the west side." Rescuing bees took us the entire morning. Driving back into remote corners of the woods where there were barely roads, we would come up upon 25 beehives, upon slats like little lost cities tucked back in there. We lifted the covers and filled the feeders with sugar water. Earlier, we'd spooned dry sugar into our pockets, and now, was just as a bonus, we sprinkled it on the feeding rims. I managed to get stung on my wrist while replacing a lid onto a hive box. August scraped out the stinger. "I was sending them love," I said, feeling betrayed. August said, "Hot weather makes the bees out of sorts. I don't care how much love you send them." She pulled a small bottle of olive oil and bee pollen from her free pocket and rubbed my skin. Her patented remedy. It was something I'd hoped I'd never have to test out. "Count yourself initiated," she said. "You can't be a true beekeeper without getting stung." A true beekeeper. The words caused a fullness in me, and right at that moment an explosion of blackbirds lifted off the ground in a clearing a short distance away and filled up the whole sky. I said to myself, "Will wonders never cease?" I would add that to my list of careers: a writer, an English teacher, and a beekeeper. "Do you think I could keep bees one day?" I asked. August said, "Didn't you tell me this past week one of the things you loved was bees and honey? Now, if that's so, you'll be a fine beekeeper. Actually, you can be bad at something, Lily, but if you love doing it, that will be enough." The sting shot pain all the way to my elbow, causing me to marvel at how much punishment a minuscule creature can inflict. I'm prideful enough to say I didn't complain. After you get stung, you can't get unstung, no matter how much you whine about it. I just dived back into the riptide of saving bees. When we had watered all the hives of Tiburon and sprinkled enough sugar to cause a human being to gain 50 pounds, we drove some hot, hungry, and nearly drowned in our own sweat. Pulling into the driveway, we found Rosaline and May sipping sweet tea on the back porch. May said she left our lunches in the refrigerator, cold pork chop sandwiches and slaw. While we ate, We heard June upstairs in her room playing the cello like something had died. We scarfed down every morsel without talking, then pushed back from the table. We were wondering how to get our tired selves to a standing position when we heard squealing and laughing, the kind you're apt to hear at a school recess. August and I dragged ourselves to the porch to see, and there were May and Rosaline running through the water sprinkler, barefoot and fully clothed. They had gone berserk. Rosaline's mew-mew was sopped and plastered to her body, and May was catching water in the bowl of her dress shirt and tossing it up across her face. Sunlight hit their hair, sheen on her braids, and lit them up. "Well, isn't this the living end?" August said. When we got out there, Rosaline picked up the sprinkler and aimed it at us. "You come over here and you're going to get wet," she said, and splat. We were hit full in the chest with ice-cold water. Rosaline turned the sprinkler head down and filled May's dress. "You come over here and you're going to get wet," May said, echoing Rosaline, and she came after us, pitching the contents of her skirt across our backs. I can tell you this much, neither one of us protested that loudly. In the end, we stood there and let ourselves be drenched by two crazy black women. All four of us turned into water nymphs and danced around the cool spray, just the way it must have been when Indians danced circles around blazing fires. Squirrels in Carolina, wrens, hopped as close as they dared and drank from the puddles, and you could almost see the blades of brown grass lift themselves up and turn green. Then the porch door banged, and here came June with her dander up. I must have been drunk with water and air and dancing because I picked up the sprinkler and said, "You come over here and you're going to get wet." Then I hosed her. She began to holler, "Damn it to hell!" I knew this was going down the wrong path, but I couldn't stop. I was seeing myself as a fire department and June as a raging inferno. She yanked the sprinkler out of my hands and turned the spray on me. Some of the water rushed up my nose and burned. I yanked at the sprinkler, and each of us held onto one end of it while it blasted away at our stomachs and chins. We went to our knees wrestling for it. The geyser weaving between us, her eyes staring at me, close and bright with the beads of water on her eyelashes. I heard May start to hum "Oh, Susanna." I laughed to let her know it was all right, but I wouldn't let go. I would not let June Boatwright win. Rosaline said, "They say if you aim the hose on two locked dogs, they'll turn loose, but I guess that ain't always so." August laughed, and I saw the softening come around June's eyes, how she was trying not to laugh, but it was like the Dutch boy pulling his finger out of the dike. The minute she softened her eyes, the whole thing collapsed. I could almost see her smack her forehead, thinking, "I'm wrestling with a 14-year-old girl over a garden sprinkler. This is ridiculous." She let go and sprawled back on the grass in convulsions of laughter. I plopped down next to her and laughed too. We could not stop. I wasn't exactly sure of everything we were laughing about. I was just glad we were doing it together. When we got up, June said, "Lord, I feel woozy, like somebody has pulled the plugs on my feet and drained me out." Rosaline, May, and August have returned to the business of being water nymphs. I looked back down at the ground where our bodies had lain side by side, the wet grass down perfectly depressions in the earth. I stepped over them with the utmost care, and seeing how careful I was, June stepped over them too. And then, to my shock, she hugged me. June Boatwright hugged me, while our clothes made sweat squishy sounds up and down our bodies.